Hey Waffle Gang, I do hope you're well. My name is Mark and today we're checking out some more Reddit stories, and if you do love a Reddit story, why not consider hitting that like, subscribe, maybe that notification bell too, and let's crack on with today's first story. Much love guys. Now today's first story comes from the relationship advice subreddit. It was posted across two accounts, the first one being Reasonable While 966, and it's titled, My husband, 29 male, and his family disowned his mum, 56 female, after her affair. I, 28 male, didn't. Now the emotional consequences are taking a toll on my marriage. Need advice. I'm 28 male, and I've been with my husband, 29 male, for 7 years, married for almost 1. This has been a genuinely good relationship. I love him deeply, and we've built something I'm proud of. He fits in great with my family, and I've always felt at home with his. I'm close with his younger brother and his girlfriend, but the person I've always felt the strongest connection with is his mum. A few years back, I went through a rough, depressive episode, and she was one of the only people who truly showed up for me. She didn't treat me like her son's partner. She treated me like family. I've always loved her for that. I'm close with my father-in-law too, but with my mother-in-law, it always felt more of a friendship. Then everything flipped. Just after Christmas, my father-in-law sat us all down and told us she'd been having an affair, and that it wasn't the first time. He tried to make things work, but he couldn't do it anymore. He was heartbroken, and it shattered the whole family. My husband and his brothers were crushed. They all cut contact with her, and she moved out soon after. I get it. Cheating is a betrayal, especially after decades of marriage. I'm not trying to excuse what she did, but I also couldn't ignore the fact that, during one of the worst times in my life, she showed me care and kindness when I felt I had no one. That stayed with me. A few weeks ago, she reached out to me directly. She said she was running low on rent and didn't know who else to ask. She sounded anxious and desperate. I helped her. It wasn't a huge amount, and she was incredibly grateful. She asked if I'd be willing to meet her for a coffee. I said yes. When we met, she broke down. She told me she tried reaching out to her sons, but none of them responded. I listened. I didn't try to defend her or fix anything. I just tried to be there for her, the way she once was for me. Later that evening, I told my husband about it. He completely lost it. He said I betrayed him and went behind his back, and he left the house. The next day, I tried to explain where I was coming from. I told him I wasn't trying to choose sides. I just reacted to someone I care about being in a tough spot. He didn't say much, just told me not to do it again. When his brothers found out, they were disappointed in me too. They said I crossed a line and should have respected their decision to cut contact. Now, I feel stuck. I understand why they're upset. I didn't mean to hurt anyone. I just couldn't turn my back on someone who once didn't turn her back on me. I wasn't trying to undermine their pain. I was trying to act with compassion. I'm not here to justify what I did, and I understand why my husband feels hurt. I acted on instinct and compassion in a tough moment, but now I feel like I've damaged something really important. I'd really appreciate advice as what to do further. How do I navigate this? As I was reading that, it just kind of felt like the issue not being the fact that you helped her, it's more like you didn't discuss it with your husband first. Because I understand where they're coming from. You know, they're all upset that their mum and the father's wife has cheated, and it sounds like this isn't the first time that she's done this. So she's broken up their family, so of course, you know, that cut is going to be deep. But again, I think it just simply needed to be spoken about. The first commenter says similar. They said, where you went wrong is not talking to your husband first before meeting your mother-in-law. No matter if your decision was helping her out, no matter what he said. You should have still let him know first how you feel and why. Going behind someone's back and asking sorry later is not how loving relationships work. Another commenter says, probably should have talked to your husband first before going behind his back. I get you wanted to help, but here's your partner who is hurting, and you deceived him just like his mother. Another commenter says, in this kind of situation, people choose sides, especially when it's fresh. You have to remember that cutting her out isn't just about them not wanting to see her. It's also about punishing her. That is part of why your husband's family is angry. I won't say whether punishing is right or wrong. Ostracism can be very complex. When people in your orbit initiate something like this, your choices are to participate or to not. If you're not participating, then likely to them, you're undermining their punishment. I think to your husband, she's his mother, and your relationship with her exists through him. So if she's out of his life, he expects her to be out of your life too. I'm sure to you, helping her meant that your love for her was stronger than your disappointment in her actions. For people that were more hurt by her actions, it's just going to read like condoning. Unfortunately, we don't get to choose how our actions impact others. Beyond that, you say you acted on instinct and compassion, but is that true? Make it sound like an involuntary action, and you took her call, met her for coffee, which talked about her songs not responding, and gave her money, all without thinking about how everyone else would feel about it. I don't believe that. I think the first step is owning your actions. You either own them as a choice you made that you deeply regret and wish you could change, or you own them as a choice you would make again in a heartbeat. That means telling your husband either, I regret meeting with your mother, I should have cared more about how it would impact you, or your mother means too much to me and I'm not willing to cut her out of my life. Then I guess you go from there. There's no way to get out of this without hurting someone. But do remember who created this situation. It wasn't your husband or his brothers. And the last commenter says, the difference between your tough time and her tough time is that yours was brought on by mental illness, depression, and hers is the consequences of her own actions. Cheating. I get that you wanted to return the compassion she showed you, but you should let sleeping dogs lie. So, some point later, OP comes in with their update and says, lost access to my previous account, so posting it from here. And that's why they posted on a brand new account. They said, I didn't expect my post to gain the traction it did. I genuinely appreciate the advice many of you offered. Some responses were a bit nuclear. Understandably Reddit. I did take in a lot of perspectives that helped me reflect. I want to share some context that I didn't include in the original post, which I now realize was important. A few years ago, I went through a rough, depressive episode. My husband and I were doing long distance at the time. He was working abroad, and while he supported me as best as he could, it was hard. His mum was the one who showed up in person. She dropped by often, made sure I was eating, even came with me to therapy a couple of times. It wasn't some grand gesture, but it mattered. That kind of consistency stays with you. So when she reached out a few days ago, anxious and saying she didn't know who else to ask, I just reacted. I helped her with a bit of money from my personal account, nothing major, and I agreed to meet her for coffee. I didn't tell my husband before doing it, and that was where things really unraveled. He was blindsided. We've always been the kind of people who talk through the hard stuff, and I acted completely on my own. I see now how that felt like betrayal to him. After a bit of space and some heavy conversations, we talked properly. He told me he had spoken to his younger brother, and finally got the full story about their last attempt to reach out to their mum. It wasn't just an argument. It was bad. She said things that were apparently cruel and deeply personal. The kind of stuff that cuts years deep. I hadn't known any of that. Neither of us had. Hearing it changed something for me. The woman I saw at coffee was warm, vulnerable, even a little lost. But that's not the woman his brother dealt with. And maybe both are real. Maybe she's unraveling. Maybe she's always been complicated. I honestly don't know. What I do know is that my husband's boundaries are valid. He told me that he's not ready to reconnect with her and that he's not comfortable with me being in touch with her either. And after hearing what I've heard, I understand that. I've told him I'm stepping back. If she does reach out again, I'll tell her that I can't be the person in the middle. Not unless something genuinely shifts between them first. We both apologized. He for shutting down so quickly. Me for making a decision without him when I shouldn't have. We're okay now. I still think there's something more going on with her. Emotionally, maybe even mentally. She's been a stay-at-home mum most of her life. Her siblings live abroad, and from what I've heard, she's already asked her friends for help before coming to me. That doesn't excuse anything, but it does make me think about how lost she might be right now. Still, that's not something I can fix. Right now, my focus is on us. I care about what his mum did for me in the past and still recognize that she's hurt people I love. This whole situation has been messy and a bit surreal. We didn't walk away from it with everything fixed, but we've come out of it with a better understanding of where we each stand. We handled it the best we could, and at the end of the day, we're still solid. Still, I can't lie. There's a part of me that feels pulled towards who she was for me during that rough time. Letting go emotionally feels messier than expected. How do you emotionally let go of someone who was once there for you, when the situation clearly calls for distance? A commenter says to that, couples resolving issues like adults, talking them out and listening to each other is always nice to see in an update. Another commenter says, I think your comment about maybe she's always been complicated is probably spot on. Most people are complex, and you only see the side they allow you to. Another commenter says, tough situation for sure. In the end, you only know a part of who she was willing to show you. Her compassion when you needed a friend was undeniable. However, there seems to be a lot more about her that you truly don't know, and probably never will. You tried to support her in a similar way that she supported you. That part is now done, and while you may not think of it as being in the same meaningful way, it was for her. Let it go and feel good about being compassionate to her, but let your husband and his family dictate any further involvement. Best wishes. And another commenter says, this is a healthy update and brave of you to recognize that the person you knew, who helped you, and the person who caused a lot of hurt are not mutually exclusive. They are both capable of existing at the same time, and they both come with their own type of grief in a situation like this. Reconciling the love and esteem you have for someone who fundamentally supported you through darkness is so challenging in light of them creating that darkness for someone else. Many someones, really. Do you think that maybe some therapy might help you in the short term in processing these feelings? I commend you and your husband both for communicating and giving each other grace during this. It's easy to lose sight of things when we are fraught and emotionally charged. You've both come together, created space and acknowledgement for one another, and came to the resolution you have now. However fragile it feels, it's still progress. Things will become easier with time and a little bit of distance from it. Good job. And I'm glad it's one of those scenarios where communication does win the day, that they was able to talk their feelings over and hopefully move on together. But what do you guys make of this situation? Let us know your thoughts down in the comments below. Let's move on to another story. Now, our next story comes from a throwaway account, and it says, am I the arsehole for telling my sister and her neighbor to stop convincing my husband into therapy? Otherwise, we'll leave. I am 27 female. I've been married to my husband, 28 male, for the past 3 years. We grew up together and even went to the same school and college. We started dating when we turned 15. My husband and I moved in temporarily into my parents' home. My mom is extremely sick, so she asked me to stay with her for a month or two, so I started living with her. My sister, 24 female, lives with my parents, and she's being a pain in my butt as well, along with their neighbor. The neighbor is very close to my parents and visits every day, and spends time with my mum and sister, which I'm grateful of, but I don't appreciate how she's butting in my relationship. My husband is a bit rude, or appears as one. He doesn't like people and minds his own business. He's kinda angry all the time but doesn't show it. He doesn't like talking about it with others except me. He's the type of guy that if a family member needed his help, he'd be the first one to show up. My husband is quiet all the time and only talks to strangers if they initiate the conversation. Otherwise, he'll focus on his work. He's a workaholic, but the neighbor keeps trying to talk to him. At first, she would just initiate small talks, which my husband hates but tolerated. But then she tried to convince him to go to therapy and said that her cousin is a therapist. My husband refused, but she kept bringing it up every day and tried to convince him. After a few days, when he had enough, he told her that he appreciates her concern, but she should stay out of his life and it's none of her concern. My husband told me that he's tired of this and he's only staying with us because I and his mother-in-law asked him, and he doesn't want his mother-in-law to get involved, so either I stop this or he'll go back home. So I told her to stop asking or convincing my husband into therapy or whatever. And she said that she's just trying to help me and my husband. Maybe my husband needs help because the way he's acting is like an abuser, and asked me if I'm okay. Even my sister joined her and said that my husband's behavior is concerning and maybe I should do something about it. I got a bit angry after hearing them and told them that they should stay out of our lives. Otherwise, we will leave right away and go back to our home. My husband and my stance is that we're here to cheer my mother up, which is why we aren't involving her in this. But if they don't stop, we will leave. Both of them said they'll stop interfering in my marriage, and I was rude to them when they just wanted to help me. Am I the arsehole? I get they were trying to help me, but who would get this pushy? I don't even know her properly. Forgive me for a long post and for my English. Mermaid 2 says not the arsehole. Tell the neighbor and possibly sister something like this. I think you should go to therapy. You expressed your opinion and insist on pushing until you get your way. You don't respect our boundaries and are grossly overstepping. You're also adversely affecting our mother's well-being by attacking and alienating her family who wants to care for her. Get over yourself. Just because your cousin is a therapist doesn't mean you get to diagnose and harass other people. Elder Hug says hubby is probably happier in his own home. Opie replied to him for real. I'm reading all the replies, but I feel like I'm the arsehole for asking him to stay with me. He loves to spend time and take care of my mother as if she is his own, but I think my sister and her neighbor is too damn much for him. He addresses my mum and his mum, and he specifically said he didn't want to get her involved into this. But I think if my sister and her neighbor doesn't stop, I should send him back home. Mammoth said OP is not the arsehole. Tell these busybodies to mind their business and stop diagnosing others and tell anyone what they should do. So then OP came back into the post with their update and says, so 3 days ago after I made the post, I decided to send my husband back home. He was concerned about what my mum would think and would it hurt her. I told him that I'd deal with my mum and my sister and join him. I stayed with my mum for an extra 2 days, tending and supporting her. But today I told her that I'm going back home, but I'll visit her every other day and if possible, every day. My mum quickly caught on, and she said first my husband left and now I am also leaving. She asked me if everything is okay. I told her everything is okay and we're just leaving because of work-related stuff. I lied because we don't want to stress my mum because of sibling drama. When my sister came to know about this, she asked me if I'm leaving because of what she and their neighbors said. I was honest with her and told her yes, I can't stay in a place where my husband is not respected, so it's best if we leave. She said she respects my husband but his behavior is not normal and they were concerned about my safety and my husband might need therapy, the usual blah blah. I said I appreciate her concern, but constantly telling someone to go for therapy and implying that something's wrong with them is borderline harassment. I should have put a stop to it instead of letting my husband tolerate this. She tried to stop me again and told me that I don't have to leave. I told her that I am leaving and going back to my husband. I'll visit as often as possible, but I didn't expect that we should experience so much drama just for helping my mum. So now I'm back in my home with my husband, and I wish I could have stayed with my mum a bit longer, but my sister and a neighbor screwed it all up for us. Even if by any chance my husband is abusive, quotes, even then she has no right to harass my husband with therapy, as it's none of her business. I'm kinda angry, not gonna lie. Commenter says, glad you got out of that situation. Though it's sad this drama had come between you and spending time with your mum. It's shocking some people will take such personal offense to others just existing in ways they don't understand, and will cruelly judge anyone who is the least bit different from them. From your first post, it sounds like they just hated your husband for being an introvert. Another commenter says, I agree with this. OP's last statement though, if her husband actually was abusive, I would hope her loved ones would intervene. Since he's not, it's not an issue, but really weird stance to take that you wouldn't want him to be harassed if he was abusing you. Opie says no. I was just trying to say that my husband is not abusive. I started dating him at 15 and I have known him for even longer. So what right does my sister have to call him or implying that he is abusive? And their neighbor, I didn't even know who she is. Judging someone based on their appearance I think is offensive, not just for my husband, but also to me in our marriage. Even if he was abusive, I wouldn't want someone else butting in constantly with unsolicited advice when nobody asked for it. Paul Specific says, I don't understand why they would jump to that conclusion. The sister may know him better, but the neighbor knows nothing about him. Did they give any reasons at all for why they felt this way? Or was it just a vibe they got from his appearance? Opie says, it's just because of my husband's vibe and his appearance. I've known my husband for so long, and even my own mum has more faith in my husband than my idiotic sister. But now, I'm going to turn this one to you guys. What do you guys make of this situation? Put yourself in OP's shoes. How would you feel? Let us know your thoughts down in the comments below. Now, just a huge thank you for being here today, getting involved in the stories, your love, your support, your time. It always means the absolute world to me. So thank you so much for being involved. Truly, it's absolutely amazing. And I'll see you in the next one. Take care and much love.